Hello, and welcome to the Bob Reeves Brass live Facebook stream. My name is John Snell, and it's so great to have you watching today. I hope wherever you are watching in the world, you are safe and healthy and getting some practicing in. Joining me as co-host today is Noah Gladstone of the Brass Arc, and we are so honored to have second trombone and bass trombonist with the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra, Martin Schippers, here live to answer your questions here on Facebook. So let's bring those gentlemen in. Noah, hi Martin. Can you guys hear me okay?
Hey, John.
Hey,
Martin.
Right. There we go. Hey. It's always the opposite way of where
this way.
There we go. Split the difference. Awesome.
Okay,
well, hey Noah, how you doing?
Hey, John, you're looking well today.
Oh, you too. Likewise.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Man, I love these things because it gives me some motivation to get up and get dressed and take a shower and everything.
Speaking of showers, Martin's doing a crazy thing on social media right now about showers.
You want to start talking about the
Hey,
well, actually,
let's-
we did get a question on Instagram about that. If those of you
really?
follow Martin, we'll talk about trombone at some point. But if those of you follow Martin on Instagram, know he's been doing the Wim Hof method of the cold showers. So how's that going for you?
Yeah, I mean, of course, he's from my country. He's from the Netherlands, no? So I know him for a long time. But somehow I never got really into it until like about 3 weeks ago, you know, one of those days, especially in these times, that you get lost in watching endless YouTube videos. And I got into a few documentaries about him and about, cold showers and how good it is, both mentally and physically. And I was like, okay, why not? I mean, I have nothing better to do these days, so let's go for this. And actually, today I had my 19th cold shower, and the challenge is actually a 20-day cold shower. So tomorrow it's going to be my final day of the challenge. But I've decided that after today, which actually I took a 2 minutes cold shower, I for sure will continue it. And it's crazy how many reactions I got of people so many people already were doing it. And I was actually really surprised with it. How about you guys?
Yeah, I did it a few years ago, and then seeing your post inspired me to do it again. And actually, I learned about it from one of our clients at the shop, who's a performer, and so he decided to get me on it, and it was amazing what I could do with my focus.
Yeah.
So let's start talking about the trombone. Let's see. We got Netherlands checking in already, and please show us some love in the comments. And if you have a question for Martin, ask down below in the comments, and we'll get to it live on the air. So Noah, do you want to start with a question?
Yeah, let us know from where you're watching. It's always nice to see.
Show us what. Yeah, other than just the Netherlands here.
Well, Martin, how's your practice schedule been going since all the concerts have been canceled? What are you doing to stay in shape these days?
Do I have to be honest?
No, you don't have to be. 7 hours of practice a day, right?
I mean, in the morning. No, but funny enough, like I think we played the last concert on the 12th of March, which was Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony. And then from the day after, suddenly it was over. And of course, nobody knew what was going to happen and for how long. And somehow I got this boost of energy of all of the things I wanted to do for like weeks or months. So I practiced really a lot for about like 2 or 3 weeks. And also did a lot of recordings, and I set up, like, I have this studio in my garden, but I never had the time to actually set up the stuff. And so I got really into that. But to be really honest, somehow my motivation faded a bit. Without the prospect of having a concert coming up, or a solo concert, or a travel, or a tour, or whatever. So I realized that as a professional musician, being busy with teaching, with orchestra playing, with like trombone festivals or other brass festivals, that's where I got really my motivation out. In terms of, okay, there's a concert coming, I have to be in shape. There's a solo concert coming, I'm going to build my practice routine around this. And I didn't touch my instrument now since 3 weeks. And for myself, I don't like to practice when I don't enjoy it, let's say. And to be honest, since like a couple of days ago, I start to feel it coming back, and I plan to actually start practicing from this weekend again, because also probably in about a month we would start playing, hopefully little by little, with some small ensembles of the orchestra again, of course all on distance and following the rules. But I was waiting for the moment that the fire was going to burn, to ignite again, let's say. But it took me about 3 weeks to get back to that feeling.
Well, I mean, and outside of your playing, you've been really busy on social media. You've been doing live interviews like this. I mean, you've been one of my inspirations for doing live Q&As. Can you talk a little bit about what you've been doing with that for your own, and also with the Concertgebouw projects you're working on?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just like you guys, I like technology, and I like gadgets, and I like sound stuff and video stuff. And I mean, Noah, you even have a studio, no?
I do.
And yesterday I posted a picture of a new gadget on Facebook, and John was very quick to react, posting, of course, a better version, the Pro version. But anyway, mine will come.
It's only better if I can learn to use it.
Yeah.
Much like an instrument, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I've been spending a lot of time just figuring out how technology works: cameras, lights, audio recording, video equipment. And I mean, it's a learning process. So that's why I started to do these live streams also. And besides, that is, I think, interesting for people at home, and also very interesting for me to hear these stories from my colleagues. It's also a learning process in terms of, you know, the technology behind it. So all of that combined, it gave me the motivation to start these live streams. And I think actually a lot of people are enjoying it, and I'm enjoying it myself as well. And in the beginning, I also did a lot of live streams on Instagram. But as you see now, many people start doing it, so it's a little bit difficult to, you know, find a concept that kind of sticks out. So I prefer to wait a little bit and do again something that really fits to me, instead of just doing what everybody does. But I think this interview series with brass players from my orchestra, it will continue. Tomorrow I'm doing another one with our principal trombonist, Bart. And yeah, I've been enjoying those things, actually.
Yeah,
it's nice to do. And I'm glad to hear I could give some inspiration to you also doing it.
Yeah.
And here we are.
And that's,
Here we are.
how can folks, it's we'll put the links down in the comments later where you can get those live streams, okay? Hey, we got Marcel Schott checking in. Hey, Marcel, good to see you, buddy.
Oh.
Yep, my dad's watching, so we have to keep it clean.
Okay.
And also, nice comment from David, who said the cold showers were common practice in the 80s in drum and bugle corps, although not by choice. So yeah, go ahead and show us some love down in the comments. Ask any questions for Martin Schippers here. Trombone, bass trombone. We can talk just about anything here. So go ahead and show us some love down in the comments, and let us know where you're viewing from. Martin, one of the things you talked about in our podcast was how you switch back and forth, because you're kind of unique in your position with the orchestra in that sometimes you play bass trombone, sometimes you play tenor. So how do you manage going back and forth in terms of your practice to get time in on each horn?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and I also ask that question to myself a lot, actually. But well, just changing around, you kind of get away of the thinking about how your embouchure feels, or if you're in shape at all. And this is something that I really learned during the process of having to switch a lot between tenor and bass, because simply I had no choice. No, like I just follow the orchestra schedule, and 1 week I have to play bass, 1 week tenor, or sometimes when we are on tour, I play tenor before the break and bass after the break, or the other way around. So how do you do it? The thing I always say is you get used to actually feel never in shape. And other things take over in terms of sound imagination, focusing on things that are actually more important than your embouchure.
Fascinating. So, when like, do you warm up on tenor or warm up on bass if you're playing that later in the orchestra, or how does that work?
Let's say if it's a mixed gig, I warm up on both instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So I do one exercise on tenor, I do exactly the same exercise on bass, and then I follow the routine that I usually follow. When it's a week of only bass playing, I don't touch my tenor because I want to be as much as possible in shape on bass for that week. And especially because the concerts are usually at the end of the week, I have some time during the rehearsals and the rehearsal days to practice and do a good warming up, get in shape actually for the concerts. You know? And it's the same with the tenor week. But if in a couple of weeks I have a very big solo or maybe something important to play, let's say on tenor, then for this couple of weeks I really do the warming up on tenor every day. And then I just take the bass playing in the orchestra. So it's a matter of planning also when I want to be in shape on which instrument. Because I simply don't have the time to be all the time in top shape on both instruments. It's just I don't have the time for this in terms of practice.
Mm-hmm. All right,
I have a geeky follow up to that actually. If
I
I
mean,
may,
you also do
may.
it, no?
I do.
Yeah.
I go back and forth in the same session. You know, one cue is a tenor and the next cue is a bass, or maybe a couple bars are on bass and then you're back on tenor.
Exactly.
And it's a challenge for sure. I'm just kind of curious. I know that you play Shire's trombones, Martin.
That's
correct?
right.
Yeah. When you set up your bass and your tenor, I'm just kind of curious for my own nerdiness. Do you set them up? Did you set them up similar with similar specs, or did you end up picking something a little different for the bass or a little different for the tenor?
Well, I picked my bass first with Shire's. And actually last January, just before I visited you guys in Los Angeles, I went there to pick out a tenor. And I really went in blanco without any thought of having something similar than the bass, but I ended up having almost exactly the same setup. I guess it fits to the sound image that I have in my head.
I think that's really interesting. Just if you gravitate towards the similar setup on both horns, it's fun.
Yeah, and I mean, really, I went in completely blanco. It was not my goal to end up at kind of the same setup, but I guess it fits to the sound concept or the sound image that I have in my head. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
All right, we got a question coming in from. Sorry, it's a question coming in from David, he's talking about mandatory retirement in orchestras. Is that a thing over there in the Concertgebouw or generally in Europe? Since he says that brass is so demanding as you get older. So do you have any thoughts on that? And is that a thing over there?
Yes, it is definitely. The retirement age used to be 65. But since a couple of years, it slowly went up to 67. So that means I have another 30 years to play. Yeah. So the mandatory retirement age is 67. And I mean, to be fair, for some players, you would say like, wow, it's a pity because he or she could have continued for years and years. And for some players, you would say like, okay, it's the perfect age to retire, and make place also for the new generation. In the end, an orchestra is best if you really have a good mix of age and experience, I think.
Mm-hmm. It makes me wonder what Jay Friedman would think of that question. I mean, he's going strong at what, 80 years old now?
81, just turned 81.
It still sounds incredible.
Exactly. He doesn't need to retire. He still sounds incredible. So, in that case, it's good to not have a mandatory retirement.
Man, we're spanning the globe now. We have Jason from Australia watching, and we have Dexter watching from Hong Kong. So we're going all the way from Europe to the other side of the Pacific. So greetings from wherever you guys are watching from around the world. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here. Noah Gladstone is my co-host, and Martin Schippers of the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra answering your questions live. So show us some love in the comments, and if you have a question you'd like Martin to answer, put it down in the comments and we'll get to it. The next question comes from Instagram, was submitted earlier, and it goes about they were asking about how you got started playing, Martin, and you didn't start on trombone, correct?
It's true. I started on a nicer instrument. I started on the euphonium when I was 7. And here in the Netherlands, you have a big tradition, especially in the villages, of playing a musical instrument and starting to play a musical instrument in the wind band or in the brass band, which is like the English brass band setting. So in different parts of the countries, you have different traditions, which is kind of funny in such a small country. But where I grew up, my town has about I think 15,000 citizens. And at one point there were, I think, 5 or 6 wind bands. And now there's only one left, and that's the one I grew up in. And funny enough, family members were already playing in that wind band I think over 115 years ago. There are pictures from the beginning of the 1900s where there is already a Schippers playing a brass instrument.
Wow.
So
it goes way back.
Yeah. So basically I had no choice than to play a brass instrument. And the wind band in the time needed euphoniums, and my grandfather was playing euphonium, and my brother as well, who happens to be my colleague right now, by the way. But so it was okay, let's start on euphonium, and that's how I started. And at one point I had the choice to want to maybe become a professional musician, yes or no. And then I made the choice to switch to trombone when I was 15. Because with trombone, of course, the options are much bigger in terms of jobs.
And what was the switchover like for you? Was it simple or was it a little tricky?
No, I don't remember it as something crazy, because basically I played the same mouthpiece. And the only thing different was the slide. And of course on the trombone you need to use your tongue much more in order to play legato, because on euphonium you can do everything with the valves. But actually coming from euphonium, I think really helps a trombone player with the legato, because one of the most common things for a legato not to be smooth is the lack of continuous air to keep the vibration going. And on euphonium you have no choice than to play like this, because you only have to move the valve and keep blowing. And it's a bigger instrument, so you anyway need more air than on a tenor trombone. So I think it's actually good to start on euphonium, and I think it had many advantages actually for my trombone playing later.
I started on trombone and then picked up euphonium later, and it's challenging to go the other way. I actually think it's in certain ways as just getting your valves and your tongue to synchronize is if you're not used to that, if you're used to dealing with the slide and manipulating the slide to get clean articulations, but then once you figure it out, it's actually incredibly fun because it's a really enjoyable instrument to play. It just makes a great sound, and it's so expressive, more so than I think. The trombone, of course, can be very expressive, but the nuance on trombone is a little more pronounced. On euphonium, you just blow and you make a beautiful sound, so it's very satisfying. There's a lot of help from the conical nature of it, I think. So
it's much easier to sing on a euphonium.
Absolutely. My teacher in college, Terry Cravens, used to call it the firehouse cello, which always cracked me up.
So you basically had to get rid of your tonguing in terms of legato.
Exactly. That was the thing that was really interesting is trying to play it like a trombone. You can't really approach it like a trombone. No. But you can approach a trombone kind of like a euphonium. It's interesting just going back and forth of which one you started with first. And I noticed that euphonium players tend to have that move to trombone tend to have really fantastic technique all the time, and it's just you're just used to that coordination and precision, and I think that's a really cool thing for kids and young players to start on euphonium is such a valuable tool, I think.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Sorry, go ahead.
I was thinking, When was I in Los Angeles with you? It was in
It was
January.
end of
January,
January.
right? Yeah,
end of January, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good time.
Oh, a lot
It
of
was
fun.
a great time.
A lot of
Yeah,
fun.
that was nice.
And yeah, we were just a week or two from visiting again before we got shut down. So
I know. I was supposed to be there beginning of April.
yeah, 18th is when the shop shut down. And for those of you watching, the shop is opening back up for production next week. So we're excited.
That's exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excited
that's
to,
great news.
yeah, we can't have customers yet, but we could get back to making things. So we're looking forward to that. So the next question.
Can we reveal what we were working on or not?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next question comes in from Twitter, and they're asking for a college student any audition advice for auditioning for an orchestra that you can give.
Yeah, of course, you need to know your music. And in order to get to know the music, you need to listen a lot. Because you have to assume that everybody in the jury can dream the piece of which you are playing just a small excerpt. And in their ears, whatever excerpt you play should fit in the context of the music. Because also for myself, when I'm in the jury and I hear somebody play just one excerpt, I hear the whole orchestra around me because of the experience of playing it. So as a student with maybe not the same experience of actually knowing how it sounds around you, playing that particular piece, all I can say is listen a lot. Listen many different recordings so that when you play this excerpt, you don't only focus on your own notes, but really put it in the context of the whole orchestra or the section even. That's, I think, especially as a young student, that's one of the most important things.
Now, I mean, you were young. Well, you're still young, but you were young when you got your first orchestra positions. What was your audition preparation like? How far in advance did you prepare, and what was your? Did you have a schedule? Can you take us through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it also changes over the years with knowing yourself better and better and what you need in terms of preparation. And of course, when you're young, you don't really know this. So maybe at some points I tend to over practice. And so I can't say that I did the same for every time I auditioned. But one of the things that I did every time is to play for people. Just prepare your program and then 2 or 3 weeks before the audition date, start playing your program for people and kind of recreate the audition situation. So with a screen or a curtain, or put your friends there, or play for people that you don't know. You can ask people or create the situation of playing through the whole program, and also creates a situation where things are unknown of how it will be, how people will react, how you will feel. So that's a thing that I did in all of the times. That's for sure. And probably if I would have to do an audition now again, I would do it completely different again as the last time, because of experience, and you get to know yourself better. And I would say something that I've been getting interested in is comparing the practice up to an audition with a runner that prepares for a marathon. And if you study these schedules of people that start from nothing and ending up running an actual marathon, it's very interesting, because they actually never get to run a marathon until they run the marathon. Mm-hmm. That's in the preparation schedule. And also in those running schedules, the resting part is very important. And that's something that I apply a lot now. I practice a lot and then take a rest, because your muscles need time to heal, let's say, and get stronger. But if you keep practicing all the time, then at one point it actually starts getting worse. And I guess that depends per player also, because I mean, it depends on your muscle, on your muscles, whatever fits you. I see it as some people have muscles that are more like, let's say, the short run, and some people are better in the marathon running just by nature. So it's something to find out in the daily practice, what kind of method fits best to you to be in shape at the moment you have to be in shape. And just studying the schedules that marathon runners use actually gave me a lot of very interesting insights.
Yeah, because you do a run up, literally, but you increase, and then you taper as you start getting closer to the actual event. So, yeah, when the actual audition comes up, you're fresh. You're not all beat up.
Exactly. And I mean, I made a mistake in the past because I simply didn't know to really practice too much until the day of the audition. Mm-hmm. And then you're there and you wonder why you're out of shape after 3 months of practicing. So that's, I mean, you have to make, I won't call it mistakes. Mistakes is maybe too negative, but well, let's call it mistakes. You have to make mistakes in order to improve also. So it's a learning process also, this.
Good advice. And the next question comes from Vito. He's asking, Martin, do you still play the Euphonium?
Actually, I was just explaining that I didn't practice much the last 3 weeks, and the only thing I actually really felt doing was playing Euphonium. But I don't have one here, and it's in the Concertgebouw in our concert hall, and I mean it was closed for a long time, so I also couldn't pick it up. But in daily life, usually I don't have much time to play the Euphonium. If I would have more time, I would definitely do it. In my former orchestra, I actually had the job, let's say the valve instrument job. So I had to play bass trumpet and also euphonium, like the euphonium parts in the symphonic repertoire. Mm-hmm. But in the Concertgebouw Orchestra, it's my brother that had this job already way before I came. So also in the brass ensemble, it's usually him playing the euphonium. So no, I don't play it a lot anymore, unfortunately.
Next question comes in from Twitter, and they're asking if you have any favorite etudes, any go-to etudes that you always pull out, or favorite books you like to use?
Yeah, I have a bunch of them, actually. I mean, I think it's nothing out of the ordinary. Probably everybody knows them. But like every trombone player, I love the Rochute Bordogni vocalises. I think they are great. I really like to practice Copras. There are 2 books, and there are versions for both tenor trombone and tuba. That's the one I use for bass trombone. Mm-hmm. I think they are great books. For bass trombone, I use Stefanovsky. There is one Gillis, Grigoriev, Blazevich, Tyrell, which has a version both for bass trombone and tenor trombone. And of course, for tenor, you have a lot of these French books, which are really great, like Marcel Beach. There's one Polish book, which is called USAC. They are really great also. So I like to have a mix of etudes. Ones for legato, more for tonguing, articulation, some rhythmical ones, and some ones with like a lot of jumps. Just to have it ready in case I want to work on a certain aspect of the playing.
Another question from Twitter. Any advice to get a clean articulation?
I want to hear this too, actually. Yeah.
No. Well, I think articulation has to do a lot with speech. And I always find it interesting traveling around the world how much the natural speech and the language that people are grown up with actually affects the articulation. And I think for articulation it's very important to connect to the speech. And I've been talking a lot about this also with brass players of my orchestra, doing these live chats and also with brass players around the world. I found out that there's not one general thing that people use, but I can only speak about myself. The speech I connect with is ta 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 da da da, or tu 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 do do do, or t t t d d d for the high register. So depending on the register, I change the vowel, let's say. And whatever I do, I try to really connect to this to these sounds. And for that, you can do very simple exercises of just starting with a whole note, then half notes, then quarter notes, then 8 notes, then 16th, then triplets, and just doing them faster and faster, and be really strict on having the same quality on every note, which is actually very difficult to do.
Yeah, great advice.
When I was getting into early music playing, I found it was a really fascinating thing, because playing the sackbut, you're reproducing a lot of vocal music. So one of the things that you do when you're playing on a historical trombone is really trying to play the text of the choir and blending your sound with the vocalist. Yes. So for me, when I started doing that in college, it really broadened my mind as far as how to manipulate your articulation, and especially on the trombone, since it's just all about articulation with the slide. And it's so conducive to recreating the human voice. It's such a really great way to develop some other tools in your toolbox of or bag of tricks. Yeah. That I think people, if you're really interested in that kind of stuff, listen to a lot of early music and try to emulate that. Vim Baku, of course, is like one of the best bass sackbut players. I love his playing, and he's so good at that. Yeah. Really, listening to someone emote on a sackbut, because that instrument is not made for projection. It's all about the articulation on that instrument. So it's a good, even if you don't have the best sackbut in the world, it's a really good thing to, seek out some of that really great repertoire from the Renaissance, get yourself a starter sackbut, and, just spend some time trying to play along, or get some friends to play along and try to reproduce the text of the motet or whatever you decide you want to play. And really cool. So my 2 cents on follow up there.
Oh, that's a really great advice. And funny enough, on the historic trombone or a sackbut, it's easier to use all kind of different, like, let's say, the way of talking while you're playing. So naturally on a sackbut, I think there's much more to it than just ta 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 and da da da, like you said. So yeah, that's very great advice. That's nice.
Yeah, I mean, the instruments are so thin, and they're just made to respond that way. One of the things that I look for when I'm picking out a modern trombone too is that it has some kind of quality. So I tend to like lighter trombones, brighter sounds, and strive for clarity and stuff. And that's, I think, part of that. And hey, Ben Schultz, and I have one for sale.
And Noah has one for sale.
I can sell you one. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, show us some love down in the comments, please. Let us know where you're viewing from around the world. It means a lot. We can see that you're commenting, so show us some love. If you have a question for our special guest today, Martin Schippers, ask it down in the comments. And co-hosting with me, again, is Noah Gladstone.
I have a question for Martin.
Well, you have to put it in the comments, Noah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have to put it? Let me type it in. Okay, hold on. Let me type here on the.
By the way, Ben Schultz is a friend of mine, and I know he has like loads of trombones. I mean, not as many as Noah, that's for sure, but there's probably nobody in the world.
I have a real bad addiction to buying and collecting trombones. It's a very, very bad addiction. Martin, next time you're in town, we'll have a whole day, and you can go through the entire archive.
That would be awesome.
Very fun stuff.
Go ahead. Yeah, sure. I know. I said I remember from last time when I came back, I was like, okay, next time for sure I'm going to stay 4 or 5 days longer, because there's a lot to see with you guys there.
Absolutely. I'm just kind of curious, since if you're doing a lot of recording at your house and stuff, what from a technical standpoint, which microphone or do you prefer? Do you prefer ints? Do you prefer condensers? And how are you setting them up? I think people are would be interested, especially. I mean, I know what I use, but I'm kind of curious what you use.
Well, I'm at all no specialist as you are, so I'm just trying around. And I mean, just before the whole thing started in March, I think the week or the 2 weeks before, I did a kind of microphone shout out, and my plan was actually to do it again and then make a video of it. So I mean, all the great microphones you can imagine, I've tested on that day. What I have myself now here is a Neumann M150, I think.
Nice, yeah.
And I like that one. I think it's a good mic. It's great, especially for bass trombone and for tenor also. And it's easy to use. I found it. Yeah. And as a room mic, I actually have I think it's made in California, the AEA R88.
It's a great microphone, yeah.
Yeah, and I've been testing like duos or quartets, recording with just this microphone. And yeah, I was surprised with the sound image it gave. But I mean, and then I have another. I don't have it here, like a smaller Neumann, but it's more how do you say? Pointed, let's say.
Close mic.
Yeah, more for a closed mic for like a piano or whatever. But yeah, that's the stuff I have now, and I use also an AEA preamp for the R88.
For the ribbon, sure.
Yeah, because I mean the ribbon, yeah. You
gotta have juice.
Yeah, but in this test session, I also tested the Royer Labs 122.
Yeah.
And I found that one also to be very interesting. But I mean, I guess microphones, you also need to try them in different settings, right? So that used to be where I tested them out. It was a bit of over acoustical space. So I would really like to test them once here, like close micing, to see how they would sound then.
Sure.
And it was my idea to do it at one point. But now I'm very curious. What do you think about it? Which microphones do you like with trombone?
Well, I love the Royer SF24, which is a active stereo ribbon. I think that's great for like an overall pickup. And then I love my Coles 4038, which is a great trombone.
Yeah, nice.
It's a great trombone mic. You can really blow into it, and it's cool. And then I've been experimenting lately with a Neumann TLM 67 as a condenser, which is a pretty cool mic. It sounds a lot like the vintage 67s, but it's transformerless and a lot less expensive, so somewhat affordable. But yeah, it's cool. You should absolutely do a video, I think, for trombone players to see some miking techniques, because I've been, just to keep myself busy, playing quartets with myself and recording all the parts, and it's an amazing resource just to hear yourself back like that, and learning how to use Pro Tools and learning how to use all that stuff and edit and all of those things, I think is a good skill for people right now that are stuck inside without any kind of musical performance outlet to do. Yes, definitely a good time to invest, I think, in yourself and just learning those skills.
No, definitely. And would you say that you prefer an active microphone over a normal ribbon?
I have a dB booster for my my normal ribbon, so I mean you got to have some kind of juice there. But I really like the way the active Royer stuff sounds. You said you had a 122. They're really cool. But again, a lot of it depends on your acoustic space. Yeah. And that it's just trying to figure that out, and placement and all that stuff is kind of a trial and error. So it'd be cool to do like a little web series for people, I think, so they can see. Yeah. What you do. Maybe we'll do that. We'll offline that together.
Yes, I mean, yeah, let's do it. I think it's. I mean, in that test session, I remember I did close miking, 1 step away, 2 steps away, 3 steps away, 1 step to the side, 2 steps to the side. The room mic completely up, completely down in another corner. Like, it's very interesting, but it's different with. I guess with every room and also every microphone, right? Just to find the sweet.
Well, especially the ribbons, because they're figure 8 patterns, so they're picking up both sides. So you're getting, if you're blowing into a wall or something, it's gonna slap back at you.
Yeah. So. Well, I see a little project coming, Noah.
I think so. We'll have to. There we go. Stay tuned, everybody.
Keep us up to date on that. So the next question comes from Keith Snell. Oh, who's Keith Snell? Do you find any benefits from playing duets?
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And also, the follow-up on that is do you play just with other trombonists, or do you play with other instruments, and are there any challenges with that?
I think it's great to play chamber music basically in any form, if it's a duet, trio, quartet, or brass ensemble, or like any form of chamber music together. Of course, playing alone is nice, but I think I prefer playing with people, and it gets you directly in music making mode and listening. And sometimes when you're alone, it's how can I say, it's easy to get too much into yourself and think about everything that can go wrong, basically, or think too technical, or be too busy with how you feel or whatever. And of course, it's always a challenge to not do that. And it's also possible, but I think just to get right into the music making, into the singing together, and just creating something, it's just better playing with other people. I love playing in a quartet or a trio or brass ensemble, and sometimes just by feeling the support of others, having sometimes the worst day in terms of shape, I'm amazed how you can actually get through like a 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 15-minute program just because you're playing with other people. And so if it's a duet, a trio, quartet, or any form of ensemble, I think it's great to do. And that's of course also something in this time that I miss a lot, playing together with other people, and of course in front of audience. But so then you end up playing with yourself, like Noah said.
All right, yeah. Thank you for that, and thanks for that question, Dad.
Yeah,
It pays to know people in this business, right? You get your questions front of the line.
Hello from Amsterdam. It was nice to meet him end of January and to have some chat. It was cool.
Okay, the next question comes from mouthpieces. Comes from Matthew. What differences are caused by mouthpiece rim thickness and cup depths?
Well, this is a good opportunity to talk about why Martin was visiting us in January. So
exactly.
Yeah, so we're very excited that we're doing a line of mouthpieces with Martin. He's been using Bob Reeves brass arc pieces for a while, and it's there it is. Yeah, so,
I put it up again. The I have to fire our editor. There we go.
I'm gonna have words with the editor after. There it is. So yeah, it was very cool that you joined us in January, and we're making I think it's 4 pieces on your artist series. So but we spent a lot of time experimenting with rim depth and contour and all of those things, and cup shapes and I think it's hard to go into that. I mean, we could do a whole hour just about talking about what it's like to make a mouthpiece, and maybe will at some point. But I guess the long and short of it is a lot of it has to do with your facial structure, your lips, comfortable, and we started there and kind of expanded out various diameters and shapes, keeping things somewhat consistent so that there's the nice tactile feel on your chops, which is so important as far as feedback and getting the ease that you're looking for with your equipment. So it was fun. We must have made 15 or 20 different iterations, I guess, over the 3 days. But it was cool. I think we landed on some good stuff. We're going to do another round of revisions, and then, which is why you were supposed to be here in April. And then at some point we'll do that when it's safe to travel, and we'll release those pieces out into the wild, which is very exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I remember this big pile of brass shaving,
Seriously.
That was fun. No, it's nice. I mean, I remember, I don't know if it was John or you, Noah, telling me, like, it's like you said, it's also important how the wave comes back at you through the instrument. So the feeling of the mouthpiece when you actually play it is also important, and actually the shape and like the whole balance of the mouthpiece also changes the feel of the mouthpiece, right? So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I found it a very interesting time. It was nice.
The fun thing was just trying to get the sizing right and a balanced presentation, I guess is the way to best put it. Every piece of the mouthpiece has to work together with itself, and I find a lot of times just experimenting over the years with my insanity, and John humoring me, letting me come and sandbox at the shop.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. Tiki drinks may be involved sometimes, but
I remember those as well.
yeah, exactly. The best mouthpieces are designed with tiki drinks in hand. But just finding that right balance with everything to make the mouthpiece work, and then I think it's really easy to go too far in one direction, and I think that was. But sometimes you need to get there, so that you're on the right path. Is you need to take it a little bit too far, and see for yourself why something doesn't work or does work. And that's the most fun thing about collaborating with artists such as yourself, Martin, on these mouthpiece projects. It's really a learning experience for us too, bringing collective knowledge together and creating something that isn't really in the market yet, which is pretty exciting. So
yeah, definitely. No, I remember those days were very exciting. It was very nice to do. And I think if there's one place to go to do this, I think it's with you guys.
Well, we appreciate that. And I just want to just jump in and note that Noah and I are going to be doing a semi-regular series talking about equipment. So, specific things about what mouthpieces do, the acoustics of equipment, things like that. And also Bob Reeves will be joining us for some of those live Q&As coming up in the future. So that's why it's important to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those places, so you are informed about when those things will be happening. But we plan on doing a lot more equipment-centric things like that in the future. Great question. And we have Senegal checking in, so show us some love down in the comments, and we have a time for one or two more questions here with Martin Schippers of the Royal Concertgebouw. This has been really awesome, and it's been great to see from people all over, from all the way over to Japan and Australia, over to Europe. So some people are having coffee, some people are getting ready for bed, and we're all talking geeky trombone equipment stuff. So
I think it's early morning in Asia right now.
Yeah, 6, 7 in the morning, Australia and Japan. So you guys that are up, cool having you. So the next question, actually a great one, is any general advice for a young player? This comes from Damien.
Enjoy the time you still have to practice. That's my strongest advice. I mean, looking back from where I'm now to when I was young, if I would give myself one advice, is like appreciate the time you still have to actually spend practicing, because when you get into the business, the time for actually practicing your instrument gets more limited. So when you're a student and you have the time, use it well.
It's great advice.
There you go. Next question comes in from Alex. What about any advice for practicing? Do you use a practice mute when you're practicing at home, or when you're touring, I suppose, during normal times?
Rarely. I'm not a big fan of practice mutes, but they're a nice, safe, let's say, in situations where you just want to feel your instrument a bit. But so it could be in a situation where we are traveling a lot and we are arriving to concert halls just before the rehearsal. Then I would do a half an hour warming up in my hotel room with the practice mute, or just wake everybody up that is trying to take a nap. But those would be situations where I would use the practice mute. Or, for example, when you're playing a concert, like let's say a brass ensemble concert, where maybe in one piece you're not playing and the next piece you have a solo to play and you're just waiting backstage, then I would use a practice mute just first of all to keep the instrument warm and to keep my lips going, so that not after 5 or 6 minutes waiting while the others play a piece that you come back to the stage completely cold, both your embouchure and your trombone. But like a real long time practice, with practice mute, I'm personally not a big fan of it. But I know other people really love to practice with practice mute. I think it's a personal thing.
Now we just about run out of time. Can you let folks know what's the best way to follow you, find you, especially all of the live things you're doing for the orchestra and the RCO brass?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in terms of Instagram, it's best to just follow me on my own account, which is, I mean, if you search on my name, I'm probably the first one to pop up. It's my last name dot Martin as an account, as a username, the Schippers.Martin.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just search on my name, you can find me. That's where I do a lot of live things just for myself, and the brass interviews, we're doing it live on YouTube as well as on Facebook. So it's facebook.com/RCObrass or youtube.com/RCObrass. And tomorrow, I mean, it's the afternoon here, it's the morning over there. We'll do another interview session with my colleague and my friend of the trombone section, Bart. So we'll keep doing that, and my idea is to actually expand it on my own profiles also with other trombone players, and well, also for sure I would love to talk about sound recording and equipment and mouthpieces. So my idea is, after hopefully things get back to normal, to continue doing this and expand on different subjects and also to different players.
Great, and we'll make sure we'll put the Facebook video will be posted after we end here, and then we'll have a description, and we'll make sure to have links for to make it real easy to get over to all your places. Martin, It's been a real honor. Thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom. Noah, thank you for co-hosting and getting geeky in the areas that I can't get geeky about.
It was great to see you guys.
Yeah, be safe, both of you. Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Thank you for all the great comments. Thank you all for the great questions. It's been an awesome time for all of us. You know, a lot of us are stuck back at home, can't go anywhere. I'm here in my bedroom, you know, so it's so cool to do these kinds of things. So thank you guys. I hope wherever you are in the world, you're safe and healthy. Just a few news bits. Check out our Trombone Corner podcast. Martin Schippers was a guest on episode 2. Hey, we got David Rayano is here. He was our guest on episode number 1. So check out the Trombone Corner. It's available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, trombonecorner.com. So please check that out. And be sure to follow the Brass Arc and Bob Reeves Brass. We're going to be doing more Facebook Live events. Sometimes we do some Instagram Live events, so you don't want to miss any of those. Show us some love in the comments again. Share this with your friends who weren't either up or went to bed too early if you're over in Europe. And until next time, I'm John Snell. Got to get my name right. I'm John Snell. Thank you for watching. Be safe, be healthy, and go practice.